Hi, everyone. It's great to have you here today, joining us on our first live webinar as part of our series for cyber security for everyone. And we're going to be looking at how to keep your data safe online. So we've got with us today Bhavuk Arora. I'm going to let him do his introduction, and I'm going to hand over to him now.
Hey, good morning to everyone. Those of you joining from Europe, and good afternoon to, well, almost good afternoon to people who are joining us from locally from within this region. We're going to give it a couple of more minutes to let people to join on time, and we will kick off. So just hold on for a couple of minutes, and I hope this is going to be a fun session for you. I've tried keep it as non-technical as possible to help you take away as much as you can from this session today. So for the next 1 minute, I'm going to go on mute as well, and then I will come back to you again. Thank you. Okay, everyone. So we are bang on time. So time for us to start. Before I start, there is a chat functionality. As I go through this, I will answer all your questions right at the end. But if you have any burning questions that you want answered or any insights you have to share, any story you have to tell us, please use the chat function. Poonam will keep an eye on it, and I will occasionally also look into it just to make sure that all of us. I want this to be as interactive as possible. So please do ask questions if you have uh, any that come up along the way. Okay, so the topic of this webinar is obviously how did my account get hacked? It's one of the most common things we hear these days that my Gmail got hacked, my email got hacked, my Facebook got hacked. So how does this happen is what we're going to look into this session about, and what can we do to make sure that it doesn't happen to us. Okay, so firstly, a bit about myself because I'm extremely in vain. So I'm a cybersecurity enthusiast and a preacher as well. And I've been doing this for a decade and a half because it sounds a lot better than 15 years. And other than cybersecurity, I'm fascinated by human psychology and space. And I like to think I'm funny. Well, I think I'm funny, but I'm sure I'm not. Uh, so so you've been hacked, and I've been hearing this ever since I was growing up, and everybody knew that I was into computers. And the most common questions that I would have people come across and ask me is, "Oh my God, my email has been hacked." Or on the corollary, the other question that I would get asked is, "Can you hack X and X's email? What can you do?" So before we go into that, I have a little poll question for you coming up. So let me just launch this poll and see. Has any of your accounts ever been hacked in the past? I would like you to be honest, as this is an anonymous poll. So if you can answer as genuinely as possible, that will be fantastic. We'll give it a couple of more seconds for people to respond to us. So we have a lot going in for not sure at the moment. I don't know. Let's see who else. Okay, all right. I'm going to close the poll. And surprising results that we've seen. Uh, let's see. So nobody clicked on yes. That is very interesting. We've had a not 50% not sure and 50% saying that no. Okay, so it's good. So maybe I am dealing with an extremely aware audience. So that is fantastic. So this will be like icing on the cake, this webinar for you. All right, fantastic. So moving on from the poll. So you got hacked at the end of the day. But how did this happen? We like to think that we do all the right things when we're online. So, but how does that usually happen to us? I would probably say there are multiple factors, but the biggest one is let's blame our brain, most probably. So there is this thing called as a GI Joe fallacy, which was devised by or sort of proposed by Laurie Santos and Tamar Gender, who are scientists and psychology experts at Yale University. And the GI Joe fallacy goes that we grow up believing that knowing is half the battle, but unfortunately, that is not the case. Just because we know something, we are not going to not do it. And that's the way our brain tends to operate here. We like to think that we are very secure in the practices that we practice online, but our brain is unfortunately working against us in this matter all the time because we seek comfort, we see easy way of doing things, we don't want to get into things that are too complex, so we find ways that keep things easy for us. Uh, and one of the prime examples of it I'm going to give you is $19.99. This is the most common trickery used by marketing firms and businesses out there. Now, we know in our minds that this is $20, that this is 20 dirhams, or this is 20 pounds, how much as it is, but we refuse to see it that way. We see it as 19.99, that it is not $20. So this is our GI Joe policy working against us, even though we know we still cannot process it properly. And that is the sort of psychology that hackers out there take advantage of. Now, we're going to jump into some of the ways by which your accounts can be hacked. The number one we're going to look at is credential stuffing. So it's got nothing to do with stuffing at all. We're not stuffing any turkeys here. The second way is password spraying. I know these sound a bit weird, but we'll get into that. Then we've got social engineering, phishing. If any of you work in corporates, you must have heard this phishing emails so many times over the years, and there's a lot of focus on that as well. Then there are keyloggers, malwares, and RAT. So RAT is not actually they don't release a RAT in your room. It's a remote administration tool. So this is a bit technical. And then there is a brute force. So for today's sessions, we're only going to be focused on the most common ways, that is credential stuffing and password spraying as such. Okay, time for another poll that we have. So the poll question here is, do you have a favorite password? And by favorite password, I mean it's not just that one password that you use everywhere. You could just change a little bit in that password and then use it somewhere else. Like the S is changed to dollar, the I is changed to one, the L is changed to one, and things like that. So do you have any password that you would consider your favorite password, and you use variations of that across different websites that you use? Sorry, I'm just drink some water as well. So we have the votes coming in. I'm going to give it 10 more seconds before I close this one. Okay, so I'm going to close this poll now, and let's share the results of it. Let's see what our people voted. Well, 100% everybody has a favorite password, and it's fair. I mean, there is nothing wrong with having favorite passwords. Like I said, that's the way our brain tends to operate at. Now that we've established what a favorite password is, let's go into what exactly is credential stuffing. Now, passwords these days are not easy. If you work in a business, especially, there are requirements for password complexity, that you need to have this many passwords, you need to have this character long, should have special characters, uppercase, lowercase, you should not have repeated the password 10 times, change it every 90 days. So it becomes difficult for us to keep track of all these passwords. And then what we typically tend to do is have 2 or 3 favorite passwords, and we just look at variations of those. From a security perspective, telling you from the other side, from the technical end, those variations are pretty much still the same password for me as a hacker. Minor variations doesn't do it that much for me. So what exactly is credential stuffing? Now, example is that let's say you have your Gmail account and you have a password for it. Okay, fine. You kept a password for that. Then you go on and use the same password for your LinkedIn and your Facebook. And then somehow later you found out that your Gmail account got hacked or somebody got into your Gmail password. Now, how could it possibly happen? 99% of the time, it is highly improbable that somebody broke into the Google infrastructure just to steal your password. Google, Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, Instagram, most of the big corporate websites have pretty decent security. Not saying that they don't mess up, they can mess up, but hackers have a tough task of bringing into these organizations. And especially if your email got compromised, it's very tough. So what would have happened? So the same password that you use for LinkedIn, you probably reuse that password somewhere else in some random website. You were buying something off a website that is run by a home business owner. Now what will happen is that website got hacked because they don't have much security, these little websites, and that password, username password combination gets leaked. So that what happens is all of this collection of stolen logins gets sold on the dark web or the underground internet. And then what the attacker does is it'll take your username password and use bots. By the way, this is all automated. A person is not going and typing in single username password. This is an extremely automated process that they have tools to do that. They will take your username password stolen from some random website and then use automated means of targeting all other websites with that same username password combination. And that is how a lot of hacks takes place. I have a password on LinkedIn and I use the same password while buying one random product that I needed to fix my computer from just one guy who was selling it. And I use the same password just because it's convenient. And then his website got hacked and the database was leaked. So that is how credential stuffing works. And now we're going to look at the second most common way. It's called password spraying. Now, this is the 2019 list of the 15 most common passwords that are used. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You can see it's almost a password that was used close to 3 million times. And it doesn't get any better. Next one, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And then you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. There is I love you in there somewhere as well on number 14. So people use these passwords. And what happens in password spraying is that it's very easy to find people's email addresses these days. They're published on LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, wherever. And then they will use that email with a combination of these passwords. Now, these passwords are 200, but people who are actually going after this, they will have a whole lot of table of passwords, which are millions in number, and they will use all sorts of combinations to try and break into it. That's why it's extremely essential not to use common passwords. So those are the two top ways by which your accounts can get compromised. So what is it that you can do as a normal user who is not technically aware on what you can do? So here are some simple things that you can do to protect yourself. Number one, use a password manager. 1Password, LastPass are the most common password managers. What password managers do for you is that it can save all the passwords for you. It can even generate complex passwords for you and save them for you in your browser, in your phone, on your Mac, on your Windows laptop, on your desktop. They work everywhere. So just use them so you don't have to remember passwords. Once you take the equation out of remembering passwords out of the question, then you can have a different password for every website that is unique in itself and is not repeated across. That keeps you safe. Now, I'll look at the next two. I'll explain the next two things to you. Use two-factor authentication and check your current password. So I'll just quickly show you guys something else. Oops. So there is a website called twofactorauth.org. If you go on there, what it will tell you is which websites have two-factor authentication in it. For example, let's look at LinkedIn. So what does it tell us? Yes, LinkedIn has software token based two-factor authentication and doc based. So here there will be a link that you can open and it will tell you how to have two-factor authentication in your website. You can do this for pretty much all the known websites out there. Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, everybody does it. And it used to be tough earlier because you need to get SMS verification. You always can't get a text. But now what you get is all of these support Google Authenticator. So you can have one app on your phone and it can pretty much generate. So you know those one-time OTP passwords that you get. So this generates a secondary password for you to log in. And it's not too tough. Let's say you log in from your computer all the time. You will have to just do this once and you just tell the system, remember me. This will only pop up to asking you for the second factor if you're trying to log in from a computer which it has not recognized before. So even if hackers get a hold of your password, and let's say they're trying to log in from some Eastern European country or Russia, for example, they will get this challenge and it will save you from them getting into your account. So please do look into it. By the way, all of this presentation will be sent to you, shared to you after it's done. So you can have these resources will be available to you. The next website I'm going to look at is something called as Have I Been Pwned? It is an extremely useful resource. I use it pretty regularly. So what it does is it tells you if your email was actually part of a hack which has been made public or is now known. So for example, I'll put my email in there, my official email, and I will see has it been a part of any compromise yet. As you can see, good news, no pawnage found. So this account is not in any known hack at the moment. Okay, now let's try something else. I'm going to put in my older email account that I have used for a while. It's a personal one. Please don't spam me. And let's see what happens there. Let's see, pawned. Oh my God, I have been in 11 breach sites and one paste. So, and if I scroll down a bit further, it will tell me when was this breach happen and in what part of the breach it was. Now, I'm not too concerned because I keep an eye on it and all these passwords have been reset and changed as soon as I became aware of them. So if you're unsure that if your email is a part of this or not, you can go to this website. You can even register as well so that you can get regular alerts on this. Just register your email address, and if it gets published, you will get an email telling you that you've been part of a breach. Now, please keep that in mind that this only tracks hacks that have been published and are known. If it doesn't appear here, it doesn't mean your account may not have been hacked. All it means is that it has not been published yet and it has not been discovered yet. So this is a good second line of defense, but don't just rely on this. It's just good to know if anything has happened to your account yet. Okay, so now let's get back to our deck here. Do not share passwords. Again, do not share passwords with anybody else, be your loved ones as well. There's a whole seminar on when your loved ones are your weakest link. You might not be as careful. They might not be as careful with your passwords as you are. Friends, family, whoever. Please don't share your passwords. Use common sense or not. Again, going back to the GI Joe policy, we like to think common sense works, but it doesn't. We have to make ourselves be aware that things on the internet are not how they work. And then there's a thing called as a password checkup in Chrome or Firefox. So if you Google password checkup Chrome, there is actually a plugin that goes into your browser that if you type in a password that is already weak or compromised, it'll warn you. So yeah, so please do that and avoid the common passwords. There is this link there, the 20 list that I showed you. It will show you all this details in there that you can go for as well. If you can use this link as well to generate complex passwords. And the last tip that I'll give you is lie. What do I mean by that? So when you do, let's say, a password reset. So Poonam is telling me the doorbell is ringing. So I have to go through this fairly quickly now. So what do I mean by lie? By lie, I means if you do a lot of forgotten passwords, a lot of it relies on answering security questions. Your mother's maiden name, your pet's name. Please do not use true information. Do not use your actual mother's maiden name. Do not use your actual pet's name. Those are the easiest to hack. I can dig up that information on literally everybody out there relatively easily. So I may not be able to do a password reset, but I can do what do you call it? I can do a password reset via using security questions if I'm able to dig up that information on you. So please always lie on these passwords. You don't have to lie every time differently. Just come up with a random imaginary pet name and use that as your pet. For example, I'll tell you, I have an imaginary pet name that nobody knows. Only I know it, and only I use it as a security question. And I have a made-up mother's maiden name as well that nobody knows, and only I use it. So that's that's one of the most important tips that I can give you. So yeah, if you follow these steps, it should work for you. And there is nothing like hack proof in this world. Unfortunately, there are so many ways that your accounts can get compromised. But if you follow these steps, you will be in a better position than, well, over 95, 96% of the world population you using the internet out there. So yeah, we are now open to questions. Poonam, if you have anything that come up, I would like you to come off on mute. And if any questions have come your way, please ask away.
Thanks, Bhavuk. Some really interesting insight. So I've had a couple that have been sent to me directly, and I'm sure that we'll have some more coming through in the chat. So the first question I have here is, what's the first thing that I should do to keep my account safe?
I mean, the first thing that you should do is if you haven't changed your password in a while, please go and change your password and use a complex one. Again, I've given those tips. Use a password manager to generate and save a password. Now, like apps like 1Password, they have paid versions as well, but start using the free so that you get comfortable with using password manager. Generate complex passwords and use password managers or your browser, whether using Chrome or Firefox, to save those passwords so you don't have to remember them. The moment we take out the equation of trying to remember passwords, we make it easier for ourselves. So use these tools and technologies that are there for you. So please go and change any passwords you haven't updated in a while. So that would take that first step to make yourself a bit more secure today and now.
Brilliant. Thank you, Bhavuk. Another question was around the GI Joe fallacy that you discussed around the knowing and doing disconnect. So the question I have is, how do I overcome the GI Joe fallacy? And then linked to that, are there any habits that I should be changing?
I mean, like I said, GI Joe policies, unfortunately, as I would call, is a feature of our brain. It's because we need to function. Every time we cannot be doing critical thinking or playing devil's advocate all the time to function. So the one of the ways by which we can sort of defeat this mentality is to practice and kind of remind ourselves that common sense doesn't really apply when it comes to internet security or keeping yourself safe online. So it has to be extremely deliberate, and it's not going to happen straight away. You have to keep it. It's almost like learning a new language almost, that you have to practice and practice and practice. You have to keep reminding yourself every time you start typing in your password, just just catch yourself. Is this password good enough? Have I used it anywhere else? So there's all self introspection involved there. So you have to spend time. Unfortunately, there is no easy other way of doing it. But once you do it, once you start keep doing it, it almost becomes second nature, and it becomes easier for us to do these things. And what is more important as well is we just don't keep this to ourselves. Share it with your family, share it with your friends, share it with your neighbors and your colleagues, anybody you talk to. Pass this knowledge on because it keeps everybody safe. And I'll move on to the next question. I have another one. Say, I keep forgetting my passwords. Oh my God, tell me about that. I do keep forgetting my passwords as well. Uh, I know somebody who has to do a password reset every time they have to log in. It's always funny. Uh, but yeah, like I said, we have to take out the equation of trying to remember passwords because we are forced to remember passwords. So we come up with techniques to defeat the ways to have complex passwords. We have the same 5 passwords that we'll reuse on a cycle because let's say our corporate system says you cannot repeat the last 4 passwords. So we'll have 5 passwords that we'll keep rotating. So take out remembering from the equation. Use a password manager, use the safe password function in your browser, and use tools to generate complex passwords. That is the best way to do it. That's how I would say. Uh, I have got one more question here. I get email spam even when I move them to junk or block. Well, that is not well, the reason that usually happens is because your email filter is not working properly. Google is usually very good at blocking spam emails if you report them as spam once. But if you're doing it in corporate email, it totally depends on the type of, uh, let's say, spam filter that they're using. Now, not all spam filters are good. It is unfortunate that it will keep coming through, but the best thing that you can do is keep marking them as spam. But if it's your official, if your company email, then you need to get in touch with your corporate, with your IT help desk and ask them to actively block those emails from your inbox. If it's Google, you can actually reach out to Google support as well and ask them to report it as spam. But yeah, spam, there are over a billion spam emails sent out every day. So it's a reality that we have to live with, unfortunately. But this is the best we can do with this at the moment. The next question, uh, is this some kind of hack to my email ID or AI used to know my interests and send similar emails? Well, they don't hack your email ID. What they do is they track your movements around the internet. Uh, if you are, there is nothing like a free meal on the internet. You're using Facebook, you're using Instagram, you're using WhatsApp. They are gathering your information. Anything you type, you look at, and then that is aggregated and sold across to marketing agencies who then upsell it. So these are called data brokers, and then they sell it to companies who will target you with specific ads. I will actually be doing a YouTube video later at some point in time and posting it online. I'll get to that as well, where I will be telling how our data gets used and why we should worry about our data. So your question will be answered in detail then. Uh, how safe is fingerprint for mobile app? It's relatively safe unless you are being unless you're really high profile and you're being targeted, because fingerprints can be lifted relatively easily. But for general people like ourselves who are not being targeted, it is fairly a safe way to use. But yeah, if you want it to be really secure, don't use Face ID or fingerprint. Always keep it on a pin. That is the safest way that you can have, because even when you're sleeping, nobody can put your thumb or put your face on it. If you want something to be really safe, please put your pin on it and not this, especially banking. Yes. Uh, I got an SMS. So you got somebody got an SMS. Share your opinion for information survey link. Yeah, I wouldn't usually click on such survey links because we don't know where they're from, and they are usually going to be phishing attempts to try and get your username and ID. So unless it comes from a trusted source that you know or a number that you are aware of, I would recommend do not click on any of such things, especially on mobile phones as well, because now mobile phones get targeted quite a lot. So yeah, don't click on any links, whether you get in your email or on your phone, that are sent to you. So yeah, I think that was the questions. Poonam, did you have any other questions that were sent to you, or this is the last of the questions that I've had?
One more, and I think that's the ones that were sent to me directly.
Yeah.
So there's one that sort of said that there's a lot to keep changing, and people are quite busy. So
Yeah.
is there any way that I can make my life easier, and remain secure?
Yeah, like I said, you have to take out remembering passwords out of the question. Use the tools, use automation. Everything out there is to help you, to keep you, make you more secure. Follow those. Don't try and remember passwords. That leads to all the other wrong behaviors that we use, reusing passwords, using easy to remember passwords, using the same passwords across different websites. All those are a result of us being forced to remember passwords. Take that out of the equation and it will help you be a lot more secure. So, we have a YouTube channel in which we publish information. And so, actually, on the YouTube channel, we have a playlist called Cybersecurity for Everyone, in which we are publishing short videos, which will tell you how you can keep yourself safe online. So, we have a series that has gone up so far, and it's about keeping your iPhone and your Android data safe. How can you do that? And we'll continue publishing more and more information on there. This webinar will go up there as well. So please do go there, subscribe to our channel, and stay up to date. Keep yourself safe. And if your business requires any help in protecting itself against cyber attacks, then please reach out to us. Our email is connect@thinkact.consulting. Poonam, can you, I'll just put it in the chat so everybody has it. If you want to reach out to us, that's our email address. And yeah, I would like to thank everybody who made time and came out here to listen to me ramble on about cybersecurity. And I hope this was informative and all of you had good fun and you are walking away with having learned with some practical ways and tips to how to keep yourself safe, and not just, and also some background on how hackers work. Brilliant. Thank you, everybody, for attending this webinar, and keep safe. Thank you.